Greetings, fellow cruisers. This is Jeff from Enjoy Life Traveling. Today I'm going to talk about the 80s cruise. I have been on this 3 years running. It is about to start. I say about to start. I just got off of year 9. In about a year from now, year 10. And I'm going to talk about my experiences through the years, what you could expect if you are interested in the 80s cruise. And then I'm going to touch on a little bit about chartered cruises. I'm thinking how I will do, because this is a chartered cruise. So I want to talk a little bit about that, and then I'm going to touch on some other cruises that are chartered, but I'm going to probably do a whole nother video about that, just to understand, because there are differences that it would be too much to try to put in this video here. So my first trip on this actually came out of Long Beach Port, and that was a couple years ago, my first one. That's when I realized how much fun it would be and the community that is there. If you start to talk to somebody, they're going to talk right back with you. And if you're wanting to create relationships, you're going to see a lot of times the same people year after year after year. So if you are looking for something like that, this is a more expensive cruise. And I'm going to try to go into as much of the detail about that as I can. But just know that expense is a part of that because of what you receive. And so on the cruise, even an interior cabin, it's going to cost you, per person, probably talking, I'm going to say about $2,500 a person with your taxes and port fees for the cheapest room per person. So you're talking about $5,000 for the next one. I think we paid just slightly over that with the port fees and taxes. And again, we got the cheapest. And we get a discount. The first time you go, you get a discount, and then you get a returner discount. And then you'll also get, like if you buy like right there on the ship, which is what we did, another discount. And if you pay it in full, there's a little more money to be saved. So we did that. And so it's not inexpensive, particularly for that first cruise, because you're going to be paying, that higher price there. So, but with that, you're getting all the bands. There's about 50 concerts that happen. As far as the main groups, like the bigger groups, they're going to have basically 7 like headline, and they're going to have 7 that are some headline, some are more like that have a few hits from the 80s, but don't necessarily have the big broad catalog. And they'll have some one-hit wonders mixed in there. And then there'll be some cover band concerts and some smaller things with like dueling pianos. They did this last year, or that guitar guy that'll come in and just kind of play the hits where everybody sings along and with the pub, but it'll all be 80s stuff, and it'll be kind of a different setup. And then everybody, this is adults only. This is adults only. Everybody has the deluxe drink package, whether you drink or not, whether you want to drink or not. There is no other version of that. And so everybody's going to have the alcohol package to where they can do what they want, up to $14. And just like with a normal cruise, you will pay more if you drink a drink that is more than that price. It's rare, but usually if you drink those drinks, you should probably know just how high that is. But if not, if you just ask the question, you shouldn't have a problem at all. The acts, I mean, I've seen some fantastic acts over the years, and I'll put a few in here. But I mean, I got to see, I've seen Bret Michaels, I've seen Kim Wilde, I got to see I almost wanted to say it's all genres, but really country isn't represented that I've seen. But whether it's be rock or pop or some hip hop or whatever was going on at the time, that kind of stuff is pretty well out there. Alternative stuff, a little grunge or whatever. But I guess grunge is probably more 90s. But anyway, yeah, they've pretty much everything is represented other than country for the most part. You got some heavy metal on there, and it's fun, and you can really experience some things you didn't know. So, for example, not this last cruise, but the cruise before that, Marky Ramone's Blitzkrieg. So I knew 2 songs from the Ramones that I could, sing along with. But what I found was, and my wife agrees, is that it was probably the most fun we've had. There was so much energy to all of their music, and it was just one after another. And the guitar player would all of a sudden go, "What is their revival?" And it would just be, "What are they more?" And then they would go to the next song. And I didn't know they were saying 1, 2, 3, 4 because he said it so fast. But that's what was happening. Was, "What are they more?" And then they would play another song. It was just, and it was all this upbeat, just pumping energy. When I saw them, they turned Studio B, and these are lately been on the Voyager class ships for Royal Caribbean. They have done previously some other cruise lines, but right now it's been running on Royal for the last few years. But they'll use Studio B, and they'll put down a floor to where the ice rink is. It is cool in there. You'll want to have a jacket on there. It is loud in there. So you may want to have some earplugs if that's something that bothers you. And also, if you are booking it, you might want to know where your room is at, because say like the lounge in particular, well, or Studio B, if you're right there, those bands play loud. And after the main bands are done, whatever it is, midnight, 1 o'clock, the party keeps going until about 3 o'clock. So in, say, the lounge area, in particular, I'll use as an example, and sometimes Studio B, 3 o'clock in the morning, boom, 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 boom. I didn't know better my first cruise. My wife and I didn't know better their first cruise. And we were trying to go to bed at, I want to say it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. And we were right there where everything was going on, and it was just pounding music. So it made it hard to go to sleep. I mean, it makes it good if you want to go ahead and just stay up, or if you're already up. There is a big party vibe to it. And the other thing I really like about it is that you really get to know the people. The artists do not hide from you. I guess some do, but really for the most part, they're out there with you. And a lot of times they'll tell you, hey, you don't need to come up and say like, oh, hey, may I interrupt you? Or could I? They expect that. The last cruise, I got on from one of the ports, Puerto Plata, and Sheila E. is on the elevator with us. It's like, started talking with her. She's incredibly nice. And I asked if we can get a picture. Other people beat me to it because I was like, oh, I don't know. But she was completely fine with it. She had no problems with it. She invited it. So I got my picture, me and my wife. The year before that, we were watching Rat on stage, and Sebastian Bach from Skid Row his band was right in front of us. So he's got his own band now. He's split from Skid Row. Still got an amazing voice, by the way. But he's super tall. He got into a seat and he crouched down so my wife could see, because he was literally directly in front. Of course, everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is Sebastian Bach. And of course, he's fans with Stephen Pearcy from Rat. And so that went on. And then the next day we were in Aruba, and the van that we were supposed to go in, the taxi van that we were supposed to go on, there was my wife and I and two friends. And we couldn't get in that van. They said, well, I got room in this other van for you. And they're bigger vans, not like a regular van. And so we opened the door to get in, and we're like stunned, because here we are again, and it's Sebastian Bach and his band. And we're like, is it okay for us to get in? He's like, yeah, come on. So, we're in the van and we're kind of talking with him in the band. When we got out in Aruba, he was kind enough to allow me to get a shot of him and I together, get that pic. Again, just right there on the beach of Aruba, very cool. When we're watching the bands on stage, there's a lot of times the other bands will either they'll be out watching it, or they will be behind the scenes, sort of behind there, the little, I don't know what you want to call it, if it's outside in particular, but sort of a green room kind of a thing. It'll be sort of fenced off, but I mean, they'll come right up to you. And, again, I was able to meet, Tommy Two-Tone, 8675309. So yeah, I got to meet him, and Jimmy James, who's his drummer, had also played with Bad Company. Just, we're wandering around. I'm again at the pool area, and then coming out, Astrid from Animotion, she comes in through the door. I asked for a photo. She was very kind and we were able to get a photo with her. So you really get to meet the people. And the same way, if you were like me, a product of that age, MTV. And so the MTV VJs usually are the host of that, along with some of the Sirius XM personalities that are on there, which, of course, again, the MTV guys a lot of times run there as well. So, Larry the Duck and what's that, Majewski. I don't listen to the channel, so I apologize. Lori Majewski, I believe. They're there. Alan Hunter's there. Mark Goodman's there. I know that Downtown Julie Brown was there. The other gal, Nina Blackwood, I didn't get to see her, but she's been on it before. And they're just wandering around. You end up talking to, say like Downtown Julie Brown, who's super personable. And she will just, they're talking to her, and then you see a little later on, she's like, have you seen my husband? And it was just, for us, when because that's like a star. You're like, oh my gosh, this person's here. I'm talking with them. But they're very personal, and then they become friends. And as you're on more and more of these cruises, particularly where the MTV VJs are on there, they will oftentimes will remember you. So it's really something completely different from anything else that you've probably ever experienced. That said, it is also different from some other cruises out there that are chartered. As an example, and I'm not trying to beat anybody up here, I'm telling you feedback that I've gotten from other people that have done it. And so Monsters of Rock, that's a cruise. And one of the things that I've heard is that the people that run the Monsters of Rock, things are more disorganized, or maybe there's just a lot of overlap. And so you can't catch everything and you're running around back and forth. Whereas the 80s cruise, which is done by ECP, they've organized it, and you really get a chance to see each of the bands. So when a band's playing, particularly the main acts, like the 14 bands I'm talking about, you got either a red card or a blue card. And if you're on the red card, then you see that one show. And then if you got the blue card, another time that they go on, you'll see that show. And that way they can keep it to where they don't have 4,000 people trying to watch, one concert in a place that obviously can't hold them, and people stand and turn it into, a show, the wrong kind of show. So they'll mix that up, and they'll have something going on, say 7 o'clock in the main theater, and someone's playing. Christopher Cross played. I'll just use an example in the last one, and I believe it was several bands did, but Lifehouse was on there. No, not Lifehouse. Firehouse was on there with a new singer, and he jams, by the way. That was awesome. I didn't go to the one Christopher Cross show. I caught the second one. So I had the card that had Lifehouse on while Christopher Cross was on the other one. And then the next day, at least I think that was the next day, regardless, I had the show with Christopher Cross, and somebody else had a show with a different band that was going on in Studio B. So you would have roughly a 7 o'clock and a 9 o'clock show, and in both of those two venues. And then you would alternate. If you were in one venue, at 7, then you'd be at the other venue at 9ish, but you never repeated the concert. After the concert got going and everybody sort of in place, because they didn't want anybody to, lose out, because they would check your card color to make sure you were going in the right one. Into the concert a little bit, you could sometimes get in if you were a big fan and try to catch the last of the show. That's going to be in the main theater. They do that to some level in the Studio B, but it's a lot easier to catch that because a lot of times when you're in the main theater, when that show ends, the one that started in Studio B starts just a little bit later, like 15, 20 minutes. And so you can kind of get across the ship and see the Studio B show, like the last several songs of it. So if you're a fan, you could catch that, which made it kind of fun. And then a lot of times they would have, again, pool parties with some of these bands to where you could go out. And again, as an example, going back two years ago, where I saw the Ramones, and we saw them in Studio B. And then they went ahead, while they did another Studio B thing for the other color card, they also ended up doing a pool party, and they were kind of the headline of that, which was an absolute blast outside, a beautiful day out in the Caribbean, and enjoying those guys. And we're right by the stage. It was incredible. Their best to make it to where you're not like trying to search for a drink. If you can imagine having a drink package and then having it impossible to find a drink, it could get frustrating for some people, but they usually will go with some extra bars that'll pop up there. They also will have like their own cocktail thing, where the server this year I saw, they ran around with like just a tray of mixed drinks, punches, or whatever they had going, and they would just show your card number, and boom, you go. So you still have to show your card, but so they can sort of keep track of it on their end. But yeah, they were just, it was hard to run out of a drink, not impossible, but it was hard to run out of a drink with any sort of playing at all. The other thing was really fun about this is that you got to know the artist. They would do these question and answer things with the different artists. And so on non-show times, during the day, on a C day, perhaps they might have several different offerings to where there's a question and answer thing with one of the hosts, MTV, VJs or whatever, hosting and talking to, one of the artists, Christopher Cross, where we're in sort of behind the scenes music, all that's happened with them. And those are a lot of fun. I saw Sebastian Bach's, and he was so funny. I think everybody that saw that thought it was hilarious. That this guy was really cracking everybody up. Wonderful personality. I've heard some people that have kind of, said, oh, well, he can be a little, rough sometimes. I'm a pretty nice guy, I like to think, but I can get my feathers ruffled too. So it's really hard for me to hold that against somebody if someone has a bad day, particularly when people are trying to shove cameras in their face and get photos at odd times. So I try to always show respect when I'm getting those things. But to be able to get to know the artist and those behind the scene things, even the excursions, you can purchase excursions with the artists. So if you were a big fan of Tiffany, for example, this last year, Tiffany was one of the late editions they had. And she is into baking. So they did a cupcake thing with her where you made cupcakes and decorated cupcakes with Tiffany. That obviously Royal may offer something like that with a cupcake thing, but not with Tiffany. And that's more intimate. There's not a ton of people. And if you've ever had a chance to meet Tiffany, one of the things that I had found on this last cruise is she's very personable. I remember watching, I want to say it might have been Dokken. I think Dokken was playing in Studio B, and she came in and was just standing there jamming to Dokken. And then when people had started recognizing her, that she was there, they were trying to kind of come up and get some pictures with her and such like that at the concert. And she was so sweet because she went ahead and she took that. But once she realized that it was becoming a little bit of a distraction, which was pretty quick into the people, wanting autographs and pictures, she kind of scuttled off there after very politely getting a few pictures in and saying I needed to go. And that way it didn't detract from, the concert and what Dokken was doing. Again, I thought that was just very professional and really shown that, she's enjoying this metal music, basically. And when you think of Tiffany, you're thinking, I think we're alone now or something like that. She's got that big song and kind of that mall music kind of a thing. But she was out there just enjoying the talent and talking with people, just very personable. And you get to know them in that way that you don't get to know other people. The other thing that they do on the 80s cruise, which is so much fun, is that they'll have different theme nights. And so there's a lot of people that get really, really wrapped up into these. And some of them, there'll be like a pop icon night. Really on every cruise, they'll have the pop icon night. But they'll do a costume thing, and people just have these elaborate costumes that are just amazing. And they're having these bags shipped in, sometimes, the night beforehand, huge boxes so they can get their costumes on. And you get to see some of the most amazing things there. And so I'll try to put some different pictures and such that I have so you can kind of get a feel for that. Because for me, I would wear more of a themed shirt, something that would be more 80s, whether if it was, the pop icon, maybe it was, I think my wife wore, Prince t-shirt. So you don't have to do anything, but if you want to, you can do that, or you can go with this more elaborate costume that you can see here and really have a lot of fun doing some things that you wouldn't normally have. Now this hat, they did a yacht rock theme night. And so when one of the days when Christopher Cross was playing, it was yacht rock, and I think almost that might have been part of it because he's about as yacht rocky as you get. And everybody was on there. Pretty much everybody had bought their own hat, their captain's hat or first mate or whatever for their yacht rock thing. Just even if you didn't have any costume, a lot of people just bought a hat and threw that on there. And then each night you get some swag. So this one here, you can see it. I'll try to show you the 80s cruise. So you get a shirt every year. I've gotten one. And this time, one of their theme nights was Miami Vice. And so that's, I think, where they came up with the pink. Obviously, they changed the color of the shirts each time. But I think that's why they selected the pink color on this, was because of the Miami Vice theme they had going on one of the other nights here. So I just want to have the shirt on there. And then on the back of the shirt, they'll put the bands that were listed to play on there. And it just makes it kind of a fun souvenir you didn't even have to pay for. And I've gotten hats from them that had with the 80s cruise. I've gotten visors from them, sunglasses, guitar picks, and then sometimes the different bands that are on there, they'll be throwing, guitar picks out there. Someone had some hats they were throwing out there for the 80s cruise. And it just makes it something special. So you've usually got plenty of memories, even if it's something as small as buttons, pins. My wife's got a jean jacket she wears. It's had all the different pins that she's acquired, and some of them through the 80s cruise that's been given away there. So it just adds to the fun that you have on these cruises. Because again, it's an expense, but it's also an experience that you just don't get on a normal cruise. So again, I've done, I believe, 25 cruises to the point of this video, and that's in about 2.5 years. 3 of those are the 80s cruise. And comparatively speaking, there's, even with the drink package, if you purchased it, it's just not the same thing. There's nothing wrong with those other cruises. Obviously, I love doing them. The 80s cruise is a different experience, and I think that'd be to some level on any of the chartered cruises that you could possibly take. And again, I'll touch a little bit more on that later. It's not without its drama. I'll just touch on this briefly. As you may have heard, Faster Pussycat was on this cruise. Night 1, saw their concert. And then after the second concert, which I said was 9 o'clock, I think it was, coming up, I was probably going to say 10:15, 10:30 or so. You would get out of there, and my wife and I were walking, and we're in the promenade, and they normally announce on the very first night all the acts that are coming for the next year. And because you get a chance to pre-book that and save some money if you purchased it on the ship, or before that, if you really want to, not even know who's going to play, and get a discount. And so when that started to happen and people started congregating, the person who runs this as far as the director, the cruise director, not the ship's director, but of the chartered cruise, JT, and he came out and said, well, let me back up just a little bit. The captain had said that there was a man overboard situation, or in this case, a person overboard situation. And so all we heard at that point is someone was overboard. And then later on, I say later on, like 15, 20 minutes later, when they were thinking about doing the announcement, JT came on and he said that because of the circumstances of the person overboard and the need to keep the comms open, for communication, that they weren't going to announce it. Not a huge deal, obviously. That's more important. They were going to do it the next night. And so at this point, we don't know anything as far as a person's overboard. They had closed off I want to say it's deck 5, I think, 4 or 5, that goes around the ship, to sit out, because they had crew members out there desperately searching for this person in Spotlight. They said if you wanted to be on the top level, do what you want there, as far as like the pool area. But that was what was going on there. Then we found out later that this was actually from Faster Pussycat, the lead singer, Tammy, I believe his name is, his girlfriend had jumped off the ship. And all we heard was that they had an argument and something happened and she jumped off the ship, which obviously gave some people a chance to start chattering, just human nature, as to what could have happened. An argument, someone goes overboard. Just to give you a little update, I don't want to spend too much time on this. There's video cameras all over that ship, and you can tell when someone has jumped versus the potential of someone being pushed off or whatever. And they've viewed those videos, and they've said there's absolutely no wrongdoing. This is something she chose to do. She jumped. It was shown to be not his fault. And that's all we've heard. And that's really all that happened on the ship was it was just touched on briefly. We heard more from the outside world than we heard on the ship. This was about having fun. The ship was about having fun. And then obviously what happened, that tragedy was between him and the band. And from what I understand, the band got off the ship a little early. And I think Tammy stayed on and just kind of in his room and whatever process he had to go through to deal with the loss of something like that. So again, obviously, sad, very sad, such an unfortunate thing. This is not the norm, not something we need to worry about. for chartered cruises or the 80s cruise. Just touching on it because I know the people are going to be asking about that in the comments if I don't. That's all I know. So for next year's 80s cruise, I thought I would give you a little bit of information on that if that is something you're interested in doing. One of the things that happens when you're doing cruises is that not all artists are okay with being on a cruise ship. So as an example, this year that I just got off of, Adamant is not okay with being on a cruise ship. So what they did was when they stopped in Puerto Rico, the ships just stayed in Puerto Rico until about 11:30 at night. And so he played a show at 7 something and then 9 something and then got off the ship. Now he's 74 years old, and unfortunately his voice was already given way, and by the time it really got to the second show, he was really struggling. So I feel for him, but again, when you're 74, not all the artists are keeping their voice. Some of them are. Christopher Cross sounded amazing. I've seen, Rick Springfield, he still sounds great, but Adam Ant was struggling, and again, he's an icon, and it was just fun to see and say that I saw him. But on the upcoming cruise, Bret Michaels, year 4, will be on there. To go back to about not wanting to be on the cruise ship, Billy Ocean obviously is iconic for the 80s and all that he's done. Well, what they're going to do is one of the stops is Nassau. Now, Nassau has changed. If you haven't been there, besides having a new cruise port where the vendors aren't going crazy and everything's all nice and new buildings and updated, there's an amphitheater. And so this amphitheater is going to be a party for Billy Ocean, Nile Rodgers, and Chic. So if you're trying to figure out, maybe if you're not familiar, freak out. That freak. Chic. So, it's going to be a party. It's going to be a lot of fun, and something that's completely new to the whole 80s thing is having that outside venue going on. And I'm guessing that's probably going to be during the day. I don't know that factually, but it's probably going to be, I think, start during the day and go for several hours with a few bands playing. But again, it should be just a blast, and it's only for people on the 80s cruise. You can't, unless you're beyond the fences to hear it, and you'd have a tough time seeing. This is something that's going to be unique to just the 80s cruisers. You're not going to be able to get there otherwise. It'll be blocked off. You won't have your car. You're not going to see it. But also going, again, Bret Michaels, Nile Rodgers, and Chic. I'm just going to kind of look down here so I can read them off. Gary Newman. Look him up if you're not sure. In Cars. Billy Ocean. Berlin's going to be on there with Terry Nunn. She's one of those that's been known. She's been on there before several years back. She's one that gets out in the crowd, talk to people. I haven't got a chance to meet her yet, but I'm certainly looking forward to. OMD is going to be on the ship. That's a big deal there, obviously. If you're not familiar with orchestral maneuvers in the dark, OMD, obviously that's a big deal. Taylor Dane's going to be on there. It's sometimes you get people that the bands have had, split up. So in this case, Steven Adler from Guns N' Roses, the drummer, well, he's got his own band, and of course they're playing the Guns N' Roses type music and whatever else they've put out that's new. And so obviously Guns N' Roses has a big catalog, and he's going to be playing that kind of stuff. So that should be fun as well. He's going to be on the ship. The Sugar Hill Gang, again, we're talking about some different genres of music that are out there. Quiet Riot, how's that for mixing up, going from the Sugar Hill Gang to Quiet Riot? Glass Tiger's going to be on there. Donnie Iris and the Cruisers. Daz Band's going to be on there. Heaven 17's going to be on there. Men Without Hats is going to be on there. Aldo Nova's going to be on there. Rob Bass is going to be on there. And Cool Mo D is going to be on there. And there's more that's going to be announced. So much like I said, they announced on this last cruise, they added, Quiet Riot was supposed to be on it and didn't go on this last one. They're on the one coming up. But they replaced what didn't happen with some other bands plus. So Warrant and Firehouse and Tiffany were added. And so this one here is not the full list. They're going to be adding bands. There'll be some changes there. But a lot of fun to be had. Again, that's ECP Travels or the 80s cruise. It's pretty easy to find. You're not going to find this going through Royal Caribbean. You have to book it through ECP. You have to book it through the 80s cruise. It's a completely different deal. And that brings me to an important point, is that your loyalty stuff, it's not, even though you're going to be on a Royal ship, They do not honor any of the royalty status things. So the free drinks that I would get for being diamond status or prime exceed doesn't matter because everybody's got the drink package. But say like the internet is a big perk that obviously I like doing YouTube. They won't allow it at all. It all has to be purchased. There was no discounts for anything. You know how sometimes you get percentages off. Like 2 years ago, and such, like I saw that, but this year there's like, nope. If you're on the 80s cruise, no discounts. So whatever you did, there was no discounts to be had. So looking at places like Viator where you can save some money might be able to help you. Or if you know the ports, they did a really good job with the ports. Like we went to Puerto Plata, and if you haven't been to Puerto Plata, that is a great place to be able to just enjoy the Puerto Plata. They got a lazy river, pool, beautiful area, new. Anyway, I'm off on a tangent as I do, but the ports are going to be beneficial there. The cruise is going to be Adventure of the Seas next year. That's for the Voyager class. That's been my favorite one that I've been on. Now, most people wouldn't notice the difference, but I've been on all of them and multiple times. And I've been on Adventure multiple times, and at least to that point, it was my favorite ship. So again, your hosts are going to be Mark Goodman, Alan Hunter, and Downtown Julie Brown. Larry the Duck from Sirius XM, First Wave DJ, Lori Majewski, DJ Bueller, Saturday Night Safety Dance host, Retro DJ, Travis Bell, and DJ Christopher J. Travis Bell, he's a veteran 80s cruisers. I think he graduated 2 years ago. But a lot of fun, very personable. He's been, if you've watched La Lita Loca, Tony from La Lita Loca was on there, and he was able to get some behind the scenes stuff. So definitely check that out. If you're not familiar with him, he's one of the big ones, obviously, when it comes to YouTube and cruising, and he's got some great content out there. So just to give you a real quick glance at the pricing, I just thought I'd pull it up here while I have it on my lap. The 4V category for a brand new guest is $3,070. That includes the drink package, all the concerts, all your food, specialty dining is not included in that. And then if you were a past guest and wanting to get it, you would get it for $2,840. So you save about $200 per person. It's a double occupancy cabin. So you're going to need someone to stay with you, or you're going to be paying that extra price there. So know that going in. That's going to cost you. And then they've got all the other different cabins that are in there. The 2V, that's the same. I guess it isn't quite the same. That is $3,110 for a new guest, or $2,880. Promenade views, $3,420 versus $3,330. Ocean views, $3,930 versus $3,850. And there's different ocean view categories. I'm just kind of giving you just a quick glimpse of it. You can do just a deposit. So at the time of booking, an interior or ocean view is $400 per person. A balcony is $500 per person. Suites are $600 per person. One thing I want to let you know that's very important is that when you're doing these chartered cruises, it works a little different. So if you change your mind, you're not getting a refund. There's no version of that to where you just get a refund from the cruise line. Doesn't matter what tragedies went on, because they're trying to hire all the talent that's going on there, and they got to make sure everything is covered. So if you purchase this cruise and you start making a payment and you're, $2,000 into your payments, and you decide that you can't do it, or something terrible has happened and your spouse has passed away, you're not going to get a refund with it. You can, from what I understand, if there was someone else that wanted to go with you, there's a $500 transfer fee. So if they wanted to go with you, they can get that fee on there and then do something. And then there is a group chat of sometimes that things happen last minute to where something will come available. I would tell you, first of all, be careful with that, because from what I understand, it all has to go through ECP. But there is a group chat about cabins available, which may give you a heads up, but I wouldn't purchase any of that without having the conversation in there with the people that are running it to make sure that you are not duped, because stuff happens anywhere. And I don't want anybody to put that kind of money out. I'm still nursing that cold from a couple videos ago. don't want anybody to get into trouble there to where they're regretting their decision because they lost some money. It's a different story. Obviously, there are some different things with insurance that you can do that can cover. But again, much like any insurance, and I'm not an insurance professional, but yeah, you can get things that'll cover, like the full cost of your cruise, but that's some expensive insurance there and very situational. So make sure you know all the fine lines on your insurance before you even think about canceling something like that, or even buying the insurance. Make sure you understand what it covers, because there's a lot of ins and outs to insurance, obviously, that could affect what you get back if something was sure to happen. The other thing I will leave you with here before I get going too far is the ports. It's going to go out of this time. It's going to go out of Port Canaveral. I love that port. It's going to Nassau, as I said. We're going to have the Billy Ocean thing that you can watch there with Nile Rodgers and Chic, Falmouth, Jamaica, and Labadee, Haiti. So Labadee, the problems with Labadee are behind us to a degree. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? But that's nice because your drink package, whenever you go to Labadee, transfers. So you're going to be able to use your drinks. Unusually, from what I understand, we're going to be able to use those in Nassau for the Billy Ocean thing, which is super nice. And then also, when you get off at the private island of Royal Caribbean, to be able to have that drink package that you've already purchased as a part of your ticket is phenomenal. Now, I don't know if they're going to do anything with that as far as a beach party there. They don't put all that information out. As far as the different dress things they're going to do, that'll be sort of announced to keep people going. So that'll be much closer to the cruise here, probably within the last 4 to 6 months, would be my guess. And there's more to it besides what I'm telling you. There's a lot more to the 80s cruise than what I'm even getting into. So again, I said I would just touch on some other cruise things. The people that run the 80s cruise also just recently, just this last year, and I say last year meaning like a few months ago, they did a 90s cruise, and that looks really good. But they also do a Star Trek cruise. They do a High Seas Rally. It's kind of a biker type cruise. There's also Comic Con. Again, if you've seen Tony from La Lita Loca, he was on that and loved it, and same people run it. And I know he had mentioned, because I watch him, that he really loved that cruise, and it's new and getting to know people. So it's a great time to jump on that. Some of the things that apply to this cruise may not, the 80s cruise may not apply there, like in the drinks. So I'm not talking, I don't know enough about that to tell you what you do or don't get. So, know what you're buying when you get it. They're not necessarily all 7-night cruises. So they have those 5 cruises. But like I said, the Monsters of Rock cruise was right near this, which is ran by somebody else. So there's several different music things that go on. Not only would it be for a genre of music, but also sometimes the artists I've seen, just because I was looking over for cruising over the last few months. I think it was Trace Adkins has his own thing going on, or at least had his own thing. Several other artists will have their own thing. I've seen and heard about dance ones, so it was just dancing in general, a common love. But those were ran, and this is why I thought it was interesting, it wasn't necessarily its own just people. It was within the normal people and that are not there for that. So I'll get into that in a later video. And as a matter of fact, when I was on Explorer, when I got off, I was talking about, you'd probably be glad, you're done with these cruises with I was just joking with the cruises with the themes. And he said, well, actually, because I'm going on that ship from Miami to Spain at the end of August. He said there's the cruise just before that. There's a swingers cruise. So there's even a cruise for that. And then I had seen somebody else put out that there's a nudist cruise. So there's everything out there. And again, I am going to put a video out there to talk about some of the theme cruises that I can find so you can see that. So if that's something that interests you, stay tuned. I don't think I'll wait too long to put that out there, particularly if there's interest on this. I know this has been a little bit of a longer video, but there's a lot to talk about. And I'm going to try to put some different clips in there of some of the different artists I've seen, because it's been a blast through the 3 years. And again, I'm looking forward to next year. Hopefully I'll see you on the 80s cruise, but if not, any other cruise, looking forward to it. I did hide ducks in this last 80s cruise. Got a video out I just going to put out about the ducks, so look for that, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.